Hello and welcome back. I'm Greg Lowen. Today we'll share Scene 2 of Chapter 1, Apply Within, of the new novel, The Use and Abuse of Laura Endicott. The problem, however, remained. What blessed good fortune it is to have acquired a porter at the 11th hour, I quipped at Philip's back. I had to take a deep breath to at first even imagine him by his first name. I had not yet verbally employed it. "It is blessedness pure and simple to have been so acquired," he replied chivalrously. And he had been nothing if not chivalrous. I had no idea that a man would even be able to demonstrate desire so ably, and with a gusto surely native to climes other than those green and pleasant. Tropical, rather. Verdant, yes, but of such verdure that hid the jaguar. Convenient in that I now sported a rather well-sated equatorial region myself, to carry on with the ridiculous geographic metaphor. Yes, and I shall carry right on with it, begging your pardon. It was almost as if I had Saurian lock that had once closed the fence to an animalian zoo. Who needed bestiality? I uttered aloud, after 3 college chums had witnessed a well-fashioned gentleman astride his equestrian mount at a local parade. The others drank to that sentiment, and no doubt imbibed more directly in it some time later that day. But as I comfortably observed my porter at work, throwing himself into it as one would do marriage entire, I suppose, my nudity retreated into mere nakedness. The reality poured into a very temporary hotel suite, and upon his credit. "The situation is untenable, Sir Knight, if not unbearable. I should be a mere vassal if I cannot do better on your account. We do have a week." Would it be enough? I had been granted, perhaps, due to my own fulsomely feline desires, a stay of execution, as it were, to give myself what remained in my possession. I had also discovered that what Adam and Eve peremptorily began was not necessarily an unkind coupling. I had to smirk at myself at this realization, but also not without a wince or two, as I sought to get myself up from the settee and do my part at porting. Yes, the equator had been ringed round, and in but hours, not the usual weeks or months. "Are you satisfied with me?" As if he could read my thoughts. Not a good thing on several counts, not the least of which, as they were so often in the gutter. "What on earth kind of question is that?" I coquetted. "An earthy one," he winked back. Another shock. I actually enjoyed his repartee, including when I was on the shorter end of it. We seemed to be one another's equals in wit. For myself, I had always known that this would be the most important thing, the very essence of a good match. I was almost prepared to steam off to Sumatra or such like and live comfortably, or yet to London, also I steamed, don't you know, and live in abject poverty, just to be with Philip. Pathetic in one sense, doubly so if he actually intuited it. "Shall I widen the scope of my search?" He took it as intended. "The Chronicle reaches unexpectedly distant lands. A professor of mine, whose well-respected opinion on political matters includes a dim view of empire, no less, was once refused port of entry on a tour to Egypt, due to our diplomatic corps at large having read his critique directly. Good Lord! I expect Victoria herself to be disenchanted, and that on both sides." "No doubt you are correct. Dare I solicit your own opinion on such matters?" "I respect the dare, Mr. Rossiter, or that you yourself dare, but I shall not answer, for fear of driving you farther afield than even I am willing to venture for room and board." He nodded his understanding, but I could tell as well his appreciation. For our generation, the wonders of 1851 were but a childhood memory, if even that. Our American cousins had almost bled themselves to death. That conflict had only ended a few short months ago. And Albert had been dead for how long now? It had almost seemed that the wider love had died with him, with every woman over 40 attired in widow's weeds, as if it had been a seasonal fashion, which had long overstayed its already shaded welcome. "The offices of that well-travelled journal remain open until noon. Perhaps you will accompany me." I had by now managed to slip on the French unmentionables, which were the last surviving relic of my own mother's trousseau. The crispness of the silk stocking contrasted mightily with their casual ebb and flow. It was aggravating, admittedly, to entertain a young gentleman with such niggardly equipage. but he was yet so far gone as to cast aside such druthers, expressed in his innate ability to do the same with their fashions. So, indeed, nudity had been the order of the day. Vexing, then, to be commanded by reality, however earthly or even earthy it may be, to dress in all the good taste and modesty of the day. Have you ever counted your petticoats? Is that something that boys wonder at when they see schoolgirls traipsing across the forbidden fields? That and a good deal more, I would reckon. Well, wonder no more. Oh, dear, I should not have assumed. Not at all, dear thing. Are you one to be entranced by the history of romance? Not in the least. But you men have a horrid advantage. Virginity means nothing to you, leaves no mark upon you, whether present or absent, bears no ill will towards you when lost, burdens you with no cross when intact. Hence what occurs in the dorms stays in the dorms. Now that is piquant. I suppose, since you are yourself long out of school, that such tales could in fact be told. They could indeed, but they won't be. Well, curse me, Horatio, they've already been aired out like 3 sheets to the wind. This provoked much mirth on his part, and some begrudging upon mine, but this kind of thing got us through the emigrations from my once beloved apartment, in which I had studied my way through the 3 years of degree unencumbered by any of the regulations of campus indwelling. I had come and went as I pleased, with whom I pleased, but the price had been my parents' estate. My tears thus were shed for both they themselves and what they had bequeathed me. It took the entire ride in the carriage, facing well away from Philip's kindly ken, to stem them. Almost a Persian bath, I observe, he began. Into which just one of us would fit at a time, I despair, I concluded. No matter. He had already shown some acumen for devising imaginative solutions to our now very much shared desires. Even if that was all it ended up being, I could live on, for Philip had arrived at a crisis. In that he cut more of a figure of a plot device in an otherwise bland narrative than an actual person, let alone lover. The very word sent tingles up and down my spine, indeed, lower than that. But the fact that he had arrived, well, that was more than a convenient mechanic to move the story along. I dare say the postmaster has closed up early. Nonsense. I reached for the still half-open window and thrust it back upwards. I waved through it and received no verbal reply, but rather a small light blue envelope with a wax seal and monogram. Then the whimsical face of a fellow who had imbibed overmuch the night before. He was not overhung, but rather still a trifle tipsy, even at this brighter hour. I knew you'd appear, miss. Address YZ, just like I told you. Clever, as the early letters of our lingua franca overflow with mail. He had 2 days ago noted that I should festoon my appeal with the last, and not the first, and for that very reason. At the same time, it was handy indeed that he should have recalled me at all, given the general busyness of the place, and I not the only one now standing in a queue. And yet he brushed the others aside, slamming the window screen with some conviction after I had withdrawn my precious letter. Only one, however. Only one reply, still. Lofty address, it appears, Philip offered. I was immediately suspicious it was someone's idea of a prank, a college chum perhaps, though none within my ken had remained in Cambridge this many months after convocation. I gently chiselled it open with a fingernail. I had last been in London 7 years ago, when my parents yet walked this earth and I was a cheery 13, never having darkened the gates of a board school and all that I thought it would imply. My father had suggested a novel hobby, lately named philately. It seemed ridiculous on the face of it to collect bits of coloured paper, but postage stamps had become my diversion, for anything I read was immediately linked into my formal studies. This had served me well at school, and for that matter, both of these activities had done so, for I had been given full rein to collect any correspondence that arrived there. Without the letters within, of course. I had amassed about 1,000 envelopes with their stamps still affixed. This singular piece would soon join them in one of my trunks, of which Philip had made such light work. I then recalled with a grimace another ad, placed in the Times of all places, that claimed to be from a girl then my own age, whose guardian would whip her if she did not collect to their household as many Queen's heads as possible. The response had been overwhelming, the poor thing, and before the whole event had been exposed as a fraud, this person in question had gained some tens of thousands of stamps, many of which, even now, a mere quarter-century after their introduction, had increased substantially in value. Shall I share such a secret, or are we to e'er meet in the High Street? Philip was never sarcastic. He looked like he was pining already. Yes, there might be further replies to my ad in the following week, but how far afield would they be? Could I gainsay employ before being cast out of the hotel, for instance? And there was something else in my new friend's manner that did not bode even as shadily. Preserving the embossed blazon, I heard him express astonishment. "Look there, my darling girl, that is the arms of Montfort, Earl of Leicester." "Surely a hackneyed thing," I suggested in return. "Not at all. The fork-tailed lion, red on white." He then expressed with his hands, the both of which I had come to know quite well and with great pleasure, that I should open it, and without a moment's more to ponder its outward meaning. One small piece of paper lay within. "We shall expect your attendance at Arlmont House at your most immediate convenience. Signed, H.M." My heart seemed to pause for a moment, then another. A gentle hand upon my shoulder reminded me to resume breathing. I shared the oddly uninformative missile with Philip. "That is some miles off the London road." "You know of such a place?" "Only through my studies. I could place it on a map in my mind's eye, though the image in question might date from 1500 or so." I shook my head with a mock impatience. But he, as ever, responded. "I don't suppose I would be welcome company at such a rendezvous." "I'd hardly call it that, but it is a fair consideration, or rather one unfair. How could I expect to make such a decision on the basis of not yet 3 days? Yes, I liked Philip, and yes, I disliked the notion of becoming a governess, but what else was there for me to do, given my utter lack of pension, and indeed my rather self-seeking skill set? I had told Philip of my own college course. He nodded in admiration. I had not yet played, let alone sung for him, as there was no piano ever in sight, but had as well underscored the narrowness of my accomplishments, with no rancor nor criticism, by adding that he presumed I was seeking out a household with daughters rather than sons. "I am at your service, milady." That was extraordinarily, given the time past apparently a given with Philip, and yet what could he do, even if he offered me marriage, right there and then, on the spot, standing by the now closed window of the postmaster in the winter's wastrel solstice, air clean and crisp, and the sounds of town life muted by the new year, as if expectant it would mean penury for us both? His doctoral studies abandoned for my mere hand when he already had the hold of me? No, it would not at all do in any form or function. And yet it was not even a minor scandal, our unabashed desires, given that his family lived in Paris. His father was an adjutant within the diplomatic corps there. And of course, my parents now dead for almost 6 years. It would be a tiny service, with someone straight off this same high street for witness. No, it would not do. "Do you have any siblings, Sir Knight?" "Yes, 2 sisters, as a matter of fact, in school in France." "Oh, you were not thinking—" "No, I was not. But your comment about daughters resonated just now. It would be ludicrous and contrived for me to become your sister's tutor. I should rather become their in-law." Oh dear. Philip's eyes had glazed over and were now moist. I held him to me, rather shamelessly, given public display. How long were we to be separated then? "We must make the very most of these few days remaining to us," was what he managed to say sotto voce into my left ear. Then he kissed it in a familiar way. Yes, that was it. Emily, my best school chum, would kiss me on the ear with both a firmness and a sweetness over the course of the school day, and that duo could, of course, only blossom inside our shared dormitory room. Her love for me was perennial, I had discovered, but also annual, in the sense that it could not be expressed during daylight hours, not at such a place as Hilliard's Prep. "Mr. Rossiter, you are sparing my feelings. Oh, damn you! You're not studying there, are you?" "I am to arrive at the Sorbonne for winter term. They have accepted me as a special, given my supposed academic accomplishments just down the road. It is not good form to do all 3 degrees under the same shingle, you're aware." I was not. I could care less. This meant that instead of visits, our meetings would take on rather the flavor of a visitation. My annoyance must have rekindled his own desires, but that was the most charitable interpretation thereof. I resisted chiding him the more, for surely he would be feeling as hangdog as I suddenly was. 6 weeks, then? Yes, about that, but in summer. In summers I should be as unfree as in winters. Damn it! 6 weeks a stretch, then begging to have 3 days away to trundle myself back down the London road to where, then? The great metropole, or all the way back here for you? Yes, I would come here, of course I would. And then what? Ravish me for 3 nights at most, and then what? I was now beginning to become agitated. Should I tear this note up? Should I move with him to Paris on 3 days' notice, in a world that, if one could count time backwards, he hadn't even existed in my mind's eye? The competition for employment in that city of cities would be fierce, with ladies, however young or no, such as the transplanted mademoiselle, or was she even that, living currently in Bruges. Perhaps I should have queried the postmaster about whether I was the only one who had in fact received such an envelope that was now scrunched up in one fist. I glared at him, but a young man in tears was unacceptable. It was my lot to do the weeping for us both. The only gallant thing to do is to propose, therefore I do so. He declaimed this as if it were no more than a legal transaction, but his face told me of its higher import. It was also no less than his life's worth. Without even pausing to think about it, I accepted, silently at first, and then rushing back to our room with a great gusto that, with regret, I realized after a further few hours my expostulations had been half in utter frustration, nay, even anger at the whole thing. Presently, "Is this to be a 4-year engagement, then, with lovers' leaps every 7th week? What would your family think of such a thing?" "They would think me mean-spirited on the one hand, and prudent on the other. That I should be able to keep you, excuse the expression, in professional circumstances." "What on earth does that mean? Oh, as in servants, and a rented house in the city, quite so, and me bereft of French. Oh dear, no, you'll return to England." "Almost certainly. That said, I won't be welcome in Oxbridge circles, not with a Paris degree. It will likely be Nottingham, or such like." "Good heavens, poor Laura! The Midlands at best, yet the North! You fool! Yes, darling boy, you unutterable fool! Love me, marry me, and I have already said yes with so much more than my lips." I let that fall where it may. Not given to decorum, as Hilliard's head mistress on more than one occasion had pointed out to me, the vulgarity of girls' school humor should not and never be underestimated. "Why not apply yourself for the autumn?" "I don't speak French, you fool. Oh, I've already exhausted that epithet. Give me a moment. Here, then, Philip Rossiter, I might be falling in love with you, and that is entirely upon my bare account. But given this, I should flog you from here to the Sorbonne for such news. Yes, imagine that. Me concentrating upon a life of an old maid, its mere beginnings, and then you should survive in Paris for the interim, with me pinning my hopes, and indeed more, upon your native wit." "You could yourself fall down the stairs of a great house." "I shun lengthy drapes, as you no doubt noted." That was one thing that had stuck with me throughout college, the schoolgirl hem, many inches above the boot, certainly showing all the calf whilst in uniform, then covering it up, but only to the top of the laces in college, and now no lower. But it was at that moment, just then, that the darkling angel of my lesser selfhood, and perhaps the more, began to stir. His love for me deserved it, mine for him demanded it. So I thought at the time, and such love as it was, youthful and vibrant and innocent of everything but itself, I suppose. Now I gave in, and he let out a sigh of relief, but as well of simple pain. We had 5 days at best. Surely the lord of the manor, such as it might be, would grant me that. Of course all of this assumed I was to pass muster in his witness, but at that point I could sense an unmitigated confidence bordering on gall regarding me being judged. Indeed, if it fell through, it would make an excuse to actually move to Paris with Philip, but I had to chance it first, given my rational sensibility was telling me that a lengthy engagement would be the proof of the pudding. Any man who could survive 4 years of such a test would be a worthy mate. It was that simple. "This is a test of the pilgrim, I reckon. You are my Compostela, then, my Jerusalem. Would it shock you to know that I am an agnostic?" "It shocks me odds on, certainly, but not metaphysically." "And you?" "I have recently come into a faith." I questioned him with my face, but also with my lips, which I forbade to quiver or frame the next kiss. "The goddess of which stands afore me." Utter nonsense! But I leapt back upon him even so. Those days went far too quickly. I had replied by direct post and asked if I might arrive on the 5th. Montford's reply was congenial, and even suggested a trifle of whimsy. Philip was amused, damn him. Well, then, damn him for expressing it. I had even let him chastise me for my petulance, about which he was chivalrously shy. That, too, was a test. He was not a man given to beating his woman. Perhaps he guessed at it, but I myself passed over it, loving him again and again, with just a tepid sting limned on to my posterior and giving me the very opposite of bridling. But that teapot tempest, which, unlike its reaction, was not so contrived, reminded me of how I had entirely escaped much worse fortune while at school. Having been sent off to Hilliard's after my parents' deaths, forlorn and lost, arriving there barely 14, but with tuition fully paid for, another blandishment upon my inheritance, it must be said, the headmistress took immediate pity on me and forbade any kind of disciplinary action, no matter my behavior. I did not abuse this rarest privilege, but ended up thinking myself a coward, in the face of almost every other girl, all of whom were compelled to endure rather stiff consequences for even petty faults and errata. Seeing the lurid, if passing injuries such punishments entailed, made me the meeker. Coward, I called myself many a night. Angel, I was called by my friends, and the masters too had been informed of my lot and ignored anything untoward in and out of class. I had had the run of the place, as might be said, except I was never in the state of mind to exact any kind of rule thereto. But I gained the highest academic honors through this combination of isolation and innocence, hindquarters unblemished, but heart unmended, and this vouchsafed the head's decision to exempt me from the usual run of things. Her parting words echoed for some time during college. Courage may be mistaken for its opposite, only if its silence also bids the world silent. I had blinked when she stated this, the final time I would be in her presence. I am unsure even now of the fullest meaning of such an unexpected epigram. But of one thing I had become certain by the time I had graduated from Cambridge, that I would let my actions speak the courage of my thoughts. Thus I did so now. Philip, if I am refused employ, I shall accompany you. But I shall not be wed until you deem yourself fit. Then I shall never be wed, at least to thee. I had at least to nod to that old-world sentiment its due, but then I exercised the woman's native right of volte-face. You need to meet more women, then. The double implication of this rattled him for only a moment. Ah, now, would you? Not this time. My struggle presently gave way, but pleasantly so. My laughter, all at his expense, or so I thought, urged him onward. I should not write of intimacies. They are like the vision, having complete authority over the one who has experienced them, and none at all over anyone else. Now the sensation rearward was of the sort that I reminded myself that cowardice could itself only be the match of courage if it was displayed in the face of the profound, and board-school discipline was anything but. But even so, my laughter was unabated, and thence transmuted into the voice of a united bliss, the lesser vision, to be sure, but the only one which human beings could fully comprehend. Thank you for listening to Scene 2 of Chapter 1 of The Use and Abuse of Laura Endicott.